What's up, Savages? Welcome to the Savage Syndicate podcast, where I inspire the average person how to become hard to kill. Physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. Each one of my guests is going to help you become hard to kill in one of those aspects. So sit back, enjoy, subscribe, share, and stay safe, stay savage, stay hard to kill. All right, you guys, thank you for joining another Savage Syndicate podcast. I always try to have somebody, a guest, who adds value to four main categories: being hard to kill physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. My guest today, I think he is probably all four categories. Drew Camp. He is the founder of the Epic Dad Company, which makes awesome natural supplements for dads. He also runs Tedco Lifestyle, which helps dads get ripped and reach their full potential with fitness and mindset coaching. He also has a podcast of his own. That's how we got in connection with each other, the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. So thank you, Drew. I appreciate you coming on, and jump right into it. How you doing?
Yeah, Josh, man. Thank you for having me on, man. Our conversation we had on my podcast was one of my favorites, man. Thought it was great. I mean, our whole audience loved it. I think just tips around, like you're talking about, what your whole brand about being hard to kill, is stuff that we don't really think about as dads a lot of times. We think about, being the provider and protector, but, how many of us can actually like throw a punch, right? Or take a punch, And so it was just a great conversation we had, man. So super pumped to be on yours, and I'm sure we're gonna have a good chat.
Yeah, thank you. And that's why I wanted you on, because a lot of people, sometimes I have guests on, it's like they're a little more shy than I want them. They don't talk. Me and you on your podcast just hit it off. I think we could just parlay that first podcast and do part two right now, because I think, we very like-minded individuals. Like I told you before, I was watching, some of the things on your Instagram, and if you don't follow Drew, follow him. We'll give all the connections later, but you're an awesome individual. You're a great dad. And so that's why I wanted to have you on. But tell us about the Epic Dad Company. Like, how did you start it? What's your background? Just dive into that.
Yeah. So the Epic Dad Company officially started, or Tedco for short, it started in, I think I got like the LLC in like late 2020. But it like officially started a little bit after that. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I know I want to help dads, because like when I became a dad, that was a huge transition point for me. I was in the military prior, active duty, and that was kind of like my purpose, right? And then, similar to like a lot of transitioning active duty members, had a tough time with the transition of like finding what's next, right? And that can be a tough spot. And I think because we wrap our identity around, being a soldier, that like when we're not, like we don't know what the next thing is. We don't know what that purpose is. So I had a tough time with that. But then when the first daughter was born, it just like immediately changed, like overnight. It was like, hey, I'm a dad now. That's what I'm put on this earth to do, is to raise this little girl. And now I've got 3 kids. And so that was kind of like the genesis of like, I know I want to help dads, but I don't really know how to help them, or like what I want to help them with. Just like, I just want to help dads, because that's what I'm most passionate about. So, yeah, I got the LLC in 2020, and then kind of started running things a little bit in 2021. And then we decided we wanted to really like our mission. It took a long time for us to figure out like what do we actually want to do, like to help dads. So what we really want to do is we want to help change the culture by creating more epic dads. When you look at our current culture, our current society, I think it's estimated that somewhere around like 33 to 40% of U.S. homes they don't have a present father in the home, right? And when you kind of like peel back the onion and look at root cause of like why our society is going to hell, everything comes back to having a father in the home, right? And not just being in the home, but being present, being engaged, being a leader in the home. And so that's what we want to affect. And so we just asked the question, like, what's the best way to do that? And my opinion, and yours, I'm sure you probably share this opinion, is like, when you want to step up and become a better dad, like the first thing you need to take care of is your physical health. And so that's why we decided, okay, cool. Like, let's create a supplement line that's actually good for people. It's good for dads. That's clinically dosed, like for dads. That's transparent. That's natural. So when those dads raise their hand and they say, I want to become better, I want to start being the leader for my family, like they have a brand to go to that has their back, right? And so we can kind of help them, coach them along the way, give them resources, training, coaching, and then also supplements that are going to help them on that journey. So that's kind of the story how we started, and then like where we're at now, we're still a very young brand. Um, we did an official launch of our first product this year in March, for our pre-workout, which has gotten awesome reception from the marketplace. Like it's incredible. We launched it in March, and I mean it's just like skyrocketed. We actually just today, I posted a reel today, that we just found. Yeah, it's funny. I was just like, you know what? Let me just see if there's something on YouTube about us. I don't even know, right? I haven't even checked. And so I just typed in Tedco pre-workout on YouTube, and it's like the top 5 pre-workouts of 2023, and like we're on there. I'm like, holy shit, So it's really cool, man. The market's really, really liked it. But we're very young. So we got one product, and then next year we plan on launching a lot of them. So we'll probably have 3 in the first quarter launch next year. And then we've got kind of second, third, fourth quarter lined up as long as things go well in the first quarter. And like our goal, like I said, is for that dad that wants to step up and to start leading, that they have a brand to go to that has like everything they need from supplementation. So hopefully by the end of 24, we'll be there with our product lineup. And then additionally, just because I'm super passionate about it, like we've just launched a fitness coaching program for guys to help them, for guys that want a little bit more individual coaching, just to help them like on meal plans and meal prep and like actual workouts, that you can do as a dad, because you don't have like 3 hours to go to the gym anymore. You're a dad. So we kind of help with that, right? And help with like mindset, discipline, things like that, because ultimately, personal fitness is the gateway drug, or excuse me, physical fitness is the gateway drug to personal excellence. I think Bedros Keuilian says that, and like I definitely believe that. So if you want to step up, you want to start leading, it all starts with you getting fit.
What do you find in most dads? Like me and my wife went to my son's only 10, but my wife's friend's daughter is a cheerleader. So I went to a high school football game, and I looked at her and said, I can't believe how many overweight, out of shape dads. It made me depressed. I was like, you know,
Yeah,
mentally being a kind of like fighter mentality, I'm like, I could take that guy. I could take that guy. I was like, I could destroy everybody at this fucking play. I saw a
at
couple
once.
of guys from jiu-jitsu that I knew, and I was like, okay, he could probably beat my ass. But overall, it's disturbing how out of shape and like what do you think the lack of motivation is that everybody has the dad bods, they're okay with it. I mean, obviously we
Yeah.
have saying dad bods, it should be popular. What's your take on that?
Yeah, a couple things. That like, I think the big thing is it's just become normalized,
Mhm.
right? So you think about coming down from media, right, from movies, from TV shows, social media. You think about our politicians, right, and kind of our political environment, and just kind of like accepting mediocrity as like normal, right? And it didn't used to be that way. So over the past 30 or so years, 40, 30 years, like it's been a very intentional effort, I think, to try to weaken fathers. Because at the end of the day, a weak person, a weak man, especially, is much easier to control, right? And so I think when you think about it, there's 2 things. It's like the intentional effort to do that, but then everything that we're surrounded with, it just normalizes that, that type of behavior, right? And so, dads see this, right? They see the Homer Simpson effect, on social media of like, hey, that's just how dads are, right? That's okay. That's what I am, right? But I think if you were to like actually have a real conversation with these dads, like outside of just like the barbecue at the football game, like if you really have a real conversation with them, like they know that they're not living up to their potential. And then know that like they should be more disciplined, they should be leading better. But because it's normalized, right, and we don't have those conversations anymore as dads, like they just try to go solo, right, and they try to be the lone wolf, and they think it's okay. And so I think two big things really. It's like the intentional effort, kind of top down, to control men, and then based off that intentional effort is we're just surrounded by the normalcy and acceptance of mediocrity.
Mhm. Yeah, I watched some shows with my kid. I'm a big Halloween guy. Halloween was last night, and I watched some of these shows, these newer ones, and
Hmm.
and some most of them we don't finish because I'm like, I turn that one off because you're right. It's normalizing weak men or even weak teenagers because in a lot of these movies
Hmm.
for a 10-year-old, there's teenagers, and I'm like, that's what he sees. I want him to see strong men. He goes to jujitsu with me. He knows a lot of the guys that I roll with because he stays afterwards. They all roll with him. A lot of my friends are, we need more of that in our young adult lives, and I think you're right. Disney Plus, all that shit that they're feeding down their throats is it's sad. It's very sad and it's disgusting. And I'm glad you're on board and you're sending out that message that it's okay to be a badass, fitness, healthy person, being a dad like that. And I think that's great. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think like more than it's okay to do that. Like I think it's like required as your job as the dad to do that.
Uh,
Um, and like I said, where we're at with society right now, it's just normalized mediocrity. But I think it's our job as dads to kind of break that mold, right? Because I don't know, the way that I view it, right, is like I want my kids to grow up with a little bit different childhood than I had, right? To understand like their possibilities, like as we kind of come into this internet age, right? There's a lot more possibilities out there than just like go to college, get a job, work till you're 65. There's a lot of different ways that you can go create impact, and provide financially. And that's just something I wasn't brought up on. So that's something big on my kids on too. But I think, we have to lead by example as fathers, right? And so what you see in a ton of homes is the dads, the moms are preaching about like health and fitness, but they're not living it themselves, right? The kids never see their parents work out, right? Like they're eating potato chips for dinner while they're telling their kids to eat broccoli. It's like no, like you have to be the leader, right, and live with an integrity, as the leader of the home.
yeah, that's what I think Sean Whalen said it. Don't tell him, show him. So if I tell him, hey, go do, instead of timeouts, I do a lot of push-ups. So if he pisses me off, I'm like, hey, my man, do some push-ups. It's time.
Yeah,
Um, but if I tell him to do 10 push-ups and I myself couldn't do 10 push-ups, what a piece of shit.
yep,
That's how I look at
yeah,
it. Like, I can't tell him
yeah,
to go out and surf, this one spot or do jujitsu tournaments if I'm not doing them. Like everything I tell him to, try to coach him to do, I do it myself, right? We're playing
hmm,
football every day. And I always say this on my messages as well, is like if I'm too hungover or if I'm too fat or this or that, and I can't go play with my son, then that's shit on me. That's the shame on that dad. If that's they chose to watch football all day and get drunk with their friends instead of going out and playing with their kid, that's to me is disgusting, and that's what I always tell my
yeah,
kids. I'll show them. I'll show them, even if I'm not a baseball fan, but I'll throw a baseball with them. I'll try, right? But I'm not the guy that says, "Hey, go out there and play with your kid, with your buddies, and just throw a football." Like I got to go out there and do it myself. So, yeah, I think
yep,
this is
yeah.
key.
And I think like our kids are going to look to us as like what is normal behavior. And so to your point, right, if we're just telling them go outside and play, right, but we're never outside going for a walk, we're not doing this stuff. Seems weird to them, right, that you're like pushing them to do it. But if you're consistently, taking your kids for walks, like going to the park and things like that, and kind of normalizing that behavior, then it just becomes part of their identity, right? It's like we're just going to go outside and play. I love the push-ups thing. So one thing that I take away from the army, and I made my kids do some push-ups too, and burpees are their favorite. But is in basic training, right? We would get smoked all the time. Just constantly, like all day, every day, right? But one thing that had a profound impact on me was our drill sergeants would do the exercises with us.
Yeah,
And so, they'd say, all right, half left face, like we're start doing push-ups. And like the guy that's leading the exercises is right there with you doing them, so he's counting out the push-ups as he's doing them.
hmm
So that's something that I do with my kids sometimes. I don't do it all the time. I probably need to. But it just, again, it sets that standard, right? Of like, this is the example, like I can do it, you're going to do it. But
yeah,
then two, I think it also reinforces to you as the father, like, hey, everything's my responsibility, right? Like
yeah,
even though we can't control, another human being what they do, but like ultimately, it's still our responsibility, right? We're the leader of the home. And so if they made a bad decision, if they made a mistake, like, hey, it's probably on us, right? We need to teach a better lesson. We need to communicate more effectively for them to understand. And so
hmm
by saying, hey, we're both going to knock out 10 push-ups right here because of your behavior, I think that's just going to like reinforce you as a leader. And then
hmm
it's also going to reinforce to them of like, holy crap, like my dad, one, is a badass.
yeah,
Um, but then two, it's like, he's taking responsibility, right? So I don't want to let him down.
yeah. Well, and I think using that analogy of like doing it ourselves, right? I always use this analogy is like you wouldn't go to a personal trainer who's overweight and is not doing
Yeah.
Like if they're telling me to go bench press 200 pounds or whatever, but they can't, it's like, well, why am I listening to this person who doesn't even have the discipline themselves to do what they're telling me to do? It's like, I'm not doing that. And it just like mentorships, masterminds, whatever, you always choose somebody who's at the level that you want to be at. So me and my son, we're always doing crazy stuff because it's like, well, hey, I'm not asking you to do anything that I can't do. And
Yep.
he's like, well, you do push-ups. I'm like, all right, let's knock them out. He's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
here we go. Right. But the day I can't do that, like I had arm surgery recently, and it's like, oh, I can't do the push-ups. Let's do body squats. Let's do
Air
leg.
squats. Yeah.
There's always going to be something, and that's how I always like in the morning if I don't want to go to the gym, I got to. It's just ingrained in me that that's even if I feel a little sick or this or that, you got to do it because my son's not taking days off. He's not going to not.
Mhm.
He's not gonna want like today, Wednesday, we go surfing after school. It's just part of being an active father. With that, what are some traits? We kind of said what aren't good traits for dads. What are some good traits that make an epic dad?
Yeah, man. So when I had my son, I did a lot of like personal development work, and not because like I love him anymore or anything like that, right? Than my daughters, but it's just kind of it's different, right? Of having girls and boys. Like with my girls, I was trying to set the example of the man that I want them to marry one day. But with my son, it's like I need to set the example for the type of man that he's going to become one day. And so it really forced me to like look inward, right? And do a lot of work there. So I read, and I think what really forced this issue on me as well was like my upbringing. Um, like my dad was fantastic, a great example. Started his own company, grew that to be very successful and like just relentless, right? So setting the example for sure. But we never really had any of these like deep discussions about like what is manhood and like what makes a man, and like at what point am I a man, right? And am I on the right path? Like we never really had those conversations. So I kind of had to look, outside of that once I found out I was having a son to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to be setting the example, then I need to know like what is it that a man does, right? Like what are the traits of a man? So I make sure I'm living by those.
Mhm.
And I think we all inherently know some of these. They're just kind of ingrained in our DNA. But so I read a lot of books, and one that really spoke to me was a book called "Raising a Modern Day Knight" by Robert Lewis, and he gives four things that men do. And these I have written on my mirror upstairs. So first thing in the morning, I take a look at these. So I definitely resonate with these. And the four are: a man accepts responsibility, a man rejects passivity, a man leads courageously, and a man expects the higher reward. Speaking to eternal life, after death, right, with God for folks that are believers. And so I have those written on the mirror, and that just really like set a solid foundation for me of like, okay, this is what I can use to filter my decisions off of because this is what a man does, right? And so if I have something that comes up at some point during the day, right, that hey, maybe it's an email that I don't want to respond to, maybe it's a phone call I don't want to make. Like I can take a look at those pillars and those kind of values and just say, okay, cool. Well, a man, rejects passivity, right? So I'm acting passive by doing that. That's not being a man. And so like those four pillars for me are huge, man. I think it is what a man is. It's what a man should live by. And it just really provides like I said, the filter through which we can make decisions as a man and set that example.
I think that's huge. It speaks volumes of who you are that you didn't have that as a kid and as a young man, and you went out and researched it and figured out how to become that. I think that's huge accolades on your for you. I mean, that's awesome.
I
Uh,
appreciate, yeah, man. It's like I'm not perfect, right? Like nobody is, but it's like you have to have that solid foundation, right? That identity set for you of like this is who I am. These are my values. This is what I'm standing for. Like, or else, we're just gonna fall. We're gonna make incorrect decisions. One, or we may be going after things that ultimately we don't value. Two. So you have to have that solid foundation and know like who you are and what you value because there are going to be decisions you have to make. There's going to be times that get really, really tough, right? And it's going to be easy for you to make the wrong decision if you don't have those values written down in stone and reinforced like on a daily basis.
mhm. I saw in one of your posts that you mentioned that you can't be 100% of a father unless you take care of yourself. Can you go a little bit into that? Because I think you mentioned about not having our passions, or talk a little bit more about that. Like, how can we be take care of ourselves?
Yeah. No, great question. So we move my camera thing down here. So we've all heard like you know, the the example of like the plane that's crashing, right? And so the plane's going down, right? And you think you want to be like this alpha guy and help everybody else out, right? And put everybody else's mask on. But then what happens if you do that? Ultimately you pass out, right? You're going to pass out from lack of oxygen. Then you can't help anybody else. And so, we have to take that into account when it comes to how we lead the family and how we lead as a father. So we ultimately do have to put our own mask on first before we can help our family. Because if our shit is a wreck, if we're operating at 50%, then we're not going to show up the way we want to for our family. And so we absolutely have to prioritize, ourselves, making sure that we are getting in our daily habits, right? Our morning routines, our evening routines, like whatever's going to fill us up with energy and make us show up as our best selves. Like we have to prioritize that. And a lot of guys think that's being selfish. And I understand where you're coming from on that. But I just want to flip that, right? Of you're actually being selfish if you don't take care of yourself and you don't prioritize time for yourself, because then you're showing up for your family like in a shit state, right? In a negative state. And so you're not going to be showing up the way they need you to. And so like in all of our email marketing and some of our training, like we had this ratio. It's like a 60% to 100% ratio. It's like most dads want to say, I want to be there for my family 100% of the time, right? And like that's great. You should want to do that. But if you're showing up 100% of the time at 60% of your effort, or 60% of your focus, of your intentionality, like that's ultimately, like I said, being selfish to the family. So if you flip that ratio and say, okay, I want to spend 60% of my time with my family, but I'm going to show up 100% when I'm there, right? So that, like I said, it just goes back to that saying of like, you got to put your mask on first. And like some of the ways that we can do that, I think it's different for everybody. But one way is physical fitness, right? And so you've got to make sure you're moving your body. You're pushing yourself, you're challenging yourself, you're releasing those endorphins. It's just going to help you get more focused and show up better. So that's one thing. I think another thing is, depending upon if you're a believer in faith or not, right? It's like prayer, meditation, things like that. But honestly, just some time to yourself is a big thing. For me in the morning, it's like there is a markedly different person that shows up if I have a morning routine, and I'm able to go kind of like, accept my family into the world versus like waking up and reacting to them. It's a totally different person. And so like by front loading that time and in the morning to focus on myself, to get my workout in, to get my prayer in, my meditation, my breathing, my silence in, then I'm going to show up right much better for my family. And it's nice because I'm in this just incredible state in the morning, and I can, like I said, like receive them into the world. Like I show up as like a beacon of positivity, right? And like as opposed to like the other side of the coin, it's like I wake up, I don't get anything in. Then my son wakes up, he's crying. I'm reacting to him, in a negative way. Then, my wife is doing this thing, and it's just like chaos in the house, right? As opposed to like, if you do that in the morning, if you prioritize yourself in the morning, you get it done before your family's up, then you're just in such a positive state to welcome them into the world.
How do you, because you just described my whole freaking days. I have to work out in the morning, so I this morning 5:30. I have 5:30 to 8 before I wake up my son and do school stuff. So that's my time. I work out. I take care of my dogs. I check emails. If I don't do that, I find myself in that state where I'm like, "You're late. Come on." How do you
Yep.
how do you catch yourself and reel yourself back in? Because I find myself sometimes like if I don't get that workout in because whatever, maybe I slept too late or whatever the case is, and then I hear my dad and me going, "God damn it, get him!" And I'm like, "No, stop!" Like, what are the ways of the mental challenge? Like, how do you get past that? How do you reel yourself in from doing that the alternative side of that?
Yeah. Because it's not perfect, right? I don't get it in every single morning. Like there's times, where shit just happens, right? And then you're gonna have a negative start of the day. But I mean, for me, like the big thing that has always gotten me out of that state has been exercise.
Mhm.
So if I, notice that I'm starting to get triggered, right, or I'm starting to react and a lot quicker, have a shorter fuse, it's like just a signal to me of like, all right, man, like you need to drop everything right now and go outside, get some air, and just go for a walk. And so I'll just go for like a 10-minute walk, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just I've got a nice little route here in our neighborhood. Just go up the hill, back down the hill, and like by the time I'm done with that, I'm like, whoosh, I've dropped all that baggage, and like, cool, I'm ready to reset and start showing up.
Yeah. For me, that's surfing. That's like my go-to getaway is like, I love doing it, but surfing's only like 10 seconds of a wave, or not even that. And the rest of it, you're sitting out there thinking about things, and that's where I get my clarity. So, yeah. I also know that you have dad ideas, right? One of the ones I saw on your social was you set up an email for your kids, and then you're going to give them access to it when they're 18. What are little dad hacks you can do like that? That because I do the same thing. And my son's 10, and we'll kind of go through it a little bit. And I didn't look like that. That's not me, and it's kind of fun to do. I can't imagine when he's 18 what he's going to be saying. But what are some little things like that that you can do to kind of bond with your kids?
Yeah, I mean that email one is one I wish I would have started earlier. Like my oldest one is 7, so there's like 7 years right there. It's not like we don't like categorize and like keep memories and things like that. We do, but that's just really cool. I think that when they're 18 or 21 or whenever we think they're mature enough to read it, it's just gonna be really cool for them to look back and like see the world like from our perspective. Would be really cool. So yeah, great. Great one right there is to set up an email address. Start just sending them, even if it's once a month, right? Just kind of a story like, hey, monthly recap. This is what happened. So that's one. I think one that I am trying to get better at, and it's just tough because life is crazy. But it is having intentional one-on-one time with each kid.
Just
And,
wrote a
and
note.
having like
I just wrote a
do
note,
what?
multiple kid connection, like how because I only have one. That's funny. I
Yeah,
just wrote that down. When you have
yeah.
kids, how do you make sure you're connecting with each one?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been tough, right? Because we're a family of 3, we do everything together, right? And so, but I think it's really important for them to have their own like self identity, obviously, outside of like their brothers and sisters. But I think it's also important for them to have their own unique relationship with their father, right? That's not shared with any of the other siblings. So one thing that I'm just starting to tackle is one on one dates with my daughters. And like I said, it's been tough because it seems like every freaking night, man, we have a sporting event. It's like we got a softball game or we got gymnastics or we got, it's like we don't have any nights of the week. So I think I've got to be strategic about when I schedule it. But and this I heard from Larry Hagner, who runs the Dad Edge, which Larry's awesome. But his advice was exactly that, right? Of like you need to have one-on-one intentional time with them and like put it on the calendar, right? And so that's just where I'm at right now. Is like we need to just look at the calendar for the next 2 months and just start putting those on there. And even if it's just once a month, like it's that time. And then what you do with them, I think this is where a lot of dads don't necessarily get it wrong. Like there's nothing wrong with like having one-on-one time with your daughter. But I guess just a different way of thinking about it is go do something that they want to do, as opposed to you saying like, "Hey, we're going to Chick-fil-A tonight," or "We're going to play putt putt or whatever." Like actually, let them like lead what we're gonna do, because one, like they're gonna be much more engaged. It's what they want to do, right? And then it's kind of cool because you just get to enter into their world and be there for that time, as opposed to you dragging them along. So I mean, it may be as stupid as like, yeah, Dad, I want to go, color for an hour or something like that. You're like, cool, this is your time. Like, I'm just coming here to be with you during this time. So I think that's a really cool thing too, is having it be kind of directed by your kids. But the most important thing with that is in order to action it, like it's got to be on your calendar. You have to schedule it because like I just talked about, our family calendar is crazy. And like, unless I take the time to open it up and look at it and be like, cool, this night from 6 to 8 is me and P time, or, this night from 6 to 8 is me and Arden time, and actually put that on the calendar, like it's not going to happen just because we get so busy. And so, you prioritize what you schedule. So make the plan, figure it out, and put it on the schedule.
What's up, Savages? Thank you guys for watching or listening to the Savage Syndicate podcast. I appreciate it. I want to take a quick minute to talk to you guys about the Savage Syndicate group I created. I created the Savage Syndicate group with one goal in mind: inspiring you guys on how to become hard to kill. How to become hard to kill physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. Inside the Savage Syndicate group, you will have videos, 160 videos inside of a library teaching you the fundamentals of striking, groundwork, situational awareness, tutorials on gas station safety, restaurant safety, large groups, multiple attackers. All of that is inside this library that I created for you. I also have my own personal workouts that I do every morning, all under 30 minutes. They're inside of here. I also have live Zoom calls, either hosting with myself or I have guests on who are professionals at becoming hard to kill. Whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, or financial, all of these are experts here and geared towards making you hard to kill. So go to www.savagesyndicategroup.com, sign up, see you on the inside, stay safe, stay savage, stay hard to kill. What do dads most come, like when they come to you and they reach out, they say, okay, they identify a problem. I'm not being, an epic dad. And they reach out to you. What are their, like, what's the general problem that you see out of these dads that are coming to you?
Yeah, time is the number one thing. So I want to be better, but I just don't have any time. Is the number one thing. And that could be, I want to be better in a number of different areas, right? Obviously we make fitness programming, we make supplementation for fitness, right? So a lot of the guys come to us and they're like, hey, I want to get in better shape. I just don't have time. Or it could be, hey, I want to, improve my relationship with my kids, but I'm at work all the time or whatever, right? And so the constant thing is just the balance of time. And I will agree with you 100% that is the toughest problem that we have as dads is how do we, and I don't want to use the word balance because I think that's a losing approach. And I'll tell you why in a second, but it's really how do I manage my time, effectively to make sure that I'm like hitting all the buckets. Cause we have a lot of jobs as dads. We are obviously, for most of us, we're the financial provider, right? And so we're out there, we got to put food on the table, got to put a house over the head. And like, that's a big undertaking. And that takes up most of our time, right? And we want to try to be the best dad we can be. We want to try to have a great relationship with our wives and our spouses. We were taking the dog out for a walk because we bought a dog for our kid and our kid doesn't take care of it. And so there's all this stuff on our plate. And so the best way I think, in my opinion, to approach this is that we don't need to think about balance. We need to think about priority and focus. And so, there are different seasons in life is the way I like to approach it. And those seasons are going to change based off what's most important to you at that time. And just because something takes lower precedence in a season doesn't mean that it's not important to you. It just means that you need to focus your attention in a different area, during this season of life. And so, when your kids are young, right, probably from like the 0 to 4 range, like, hey, it's going to be a rough season, man. It is. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? Is you're going to be focused on family. You're changing diapers. There's like 4,800 doctor's visits you got to go to. And so it's like very, very busy, hands-on with little kids. And so like, that's your season right now. And so for your fitness bucket, right, it's like, we may have to think about how do we shift this and kind of deprioritize the fitness, even though we still want to stay in shape. Like the family bucket is going to be a lot higher priority during the season of life. And so, that's where a lot of guys come to us and they're like, man, it's so busy at the house. It's so busy at work. Like, I can't work out, man. I don't have time. And it's like, no, you do have time. You do. You just need to think about, what season you're in, right? And then how can you shift your cadence around, your fitness? Because a lot of us are thinking old school style. We got to go to the gym for 2 hours. We're going to do curls with girls in front of the mirror. But like your life right now does not support that, right? You're in the busy season with a small child or small children. And so you have to change the way you think about your fitness bucket. And maybe it is different programs. Maybe it's 30-minute stuff. Maybe it's you get a garage gym, or maybe you just go to a kettlebell workout, like at the house, like whatever. It's like, we can still hit that fitness bucket, but like, you're not going to be training up for like, an event, like a bodybuilding show or anything like that during the season. Right. And so that's the way it is. Right. And then, like I said, the seasons kind of, go up and down. Right. And so you have that 0 to 4 range. Right. And then maybe your business is just hitting on all cylinders right now. Right. And you need to be focused on your business. And so you're in the busy season, for business. And so you need to have a conversation with your family, about like, hey, this is kind of why we're doing it. We're all aligned on this vision that we want to grow this company. It's what's best for our family. Like, but there's some trade-offs there, right? And so, the way we think about it is there's four pillars really that we kind of categorize our lives into. So they are body, relationships, mind, and finances. And so the way we remember it, super easy, just be real, motherfucker. So body, relationships, mind, finances. And like those, think about it as like those are your pillars, right? You got four pillars. And like it would be super nice if they were all even and we were operating at 100% on all of those. But like that's never what's going to happen, And so like I said, as we go through the seasons of life, like some of those are going to get higher and more priority of focus, and some are going to shift down. And like I said before, it doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means like what is the priority in this particular season of life. So very long-winded answer, but that is what we get most of the time for guys reaching out that want help is how do I balance the time?
Do you reach, or do people, the dads, future dads, like if they're having a baby on the way, right? Like you said, we could read all the books we can, we're never fully prepared. Do you get people who already identify like, shit, I'm not ready for this. I need to reach out to Drew and be an epic dad before I'm even really officially a dad? Do you get people like that?
Not much, man. I wish we did, because there's probably a lot of wisdom and guidance that our community could drop on them. But for like new dads that like they got one on the way, and I was the same way. It's like it's not real until it happens. You read some books, but it's like, hey, I don't see a baby yet. But as soon as you're in that delivery room, man, like shit gets real fast.
You should have your
And you
number
kind of
on
just have to wing it.
you should have your number in the delivery room, like call Drew.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like,
You're
dude, you
gonna
need to
need
learn
this.
stuff.
You might not think so, but you're gonna need this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you find the guys, or like how do you market, your the Epic Dad Company and everything that you have? How do you market it?
Yeah. So I mean, basically everything is just kind of our organic social media growth right now.
Mhm.
Um, we've dabbled a little bit in like some boosted posts or whatever, but like not much. So everything's been kind of organic. And then on the supplement side, we're all organic as well. So yeah, really just the content we're putting out, through Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I have like 20 followers on Twitter, so maybe not there. I just can't figure Twitter out. But yeah, just social media, man.
Yeah. So is Dad Epic Dad? It's the supplement company, and then you have the fitness and mindset coaching. Do you have a group that you guys get together as well?
We do, yeah. So this is fairly new for us, and it's a concept that like I have had for forever. I actually had it on like my board that's sitting right there for almost 2 years, of just like what does the community look like for the Epic Dad Company? Because content is great, and like we're able to reach a lot of people through content, kind of like broad exposure. And then obviously supplementation is great. Like we're able to help dads on that journey. But like ultimately, I think it's community that's going to have the biggest impact, on fathers. So this is fairly new for us. So we have got a group that's called the Epic Dad Crew. And so within the group is we have what we call our Epic Dad Foundations. And it's just like it's our 6-part pillar for like, how do you become an Epic Dad? And so there's that inside there. We kind of walk people through, what does that look like? What are the 6 pillars and some exercises around that? So we've got that going on. That's just kind of our group community. And it's been fantastic. It's been growing. Like I said, it's fairly new for us, but it's been awesome to see like the on the ground tactical changes that the guys have made, and like the impact it's having on them. So that's really cool. And then we just have launched our fitness programming, which is called the Epic Dad Accelerator, which is just a 90-day program, that ultimately the goal is to help you lose the weight, like sustainably, like to teach you actually how to lose weight, to help get you a little bit more ripped. But really, it's marketed as a fitness program because it is, but ultimately you need the mindset to be successful. And so we hit on mindset a lot and really focus deep on our Epic Dad Foundations, which is our 6-pillar framework. And so, yeah, those are kind of the community side. And so like, as I look at the business, there's really 3 verticals. So like we wrote, and I say we, it's me, but I wrote what's called our Vivid Vision, in July of 2022. And so our Vivid Vision for the company was basically looking out 3 years in the future, like write this document. It's like, here's where we are. Like, these are all the things we do as a business. Like, here's where we're at financially. Here's what our team looks like. Here's where we're located at. And like, so I wrote this awesome, it's like 20-page vision of like, this is what we're going to be. And it's broken out across 3 pillars of the business. So there's supplementation, there is community and coaching, and then there's apparel. So those are our 3 verticals. And our kind of like where we're at, right? Like the roadmap for that. It's like we're a year into it, basically a little over a year into that vision, and it's just so cool, man. Like to pull it up and look back from like a year ago, because as an entrepreneur, I'm sure a lot of guys listening, it's like you feel like you're not doing anything, and you're just like spinning your wheels, because you're like, I want to go faster, I want to get more results. But then when you like actually take time to look back and just be like, what did I actually do like this year? And then I go back and look at this vision, and it's just so cool because I'm like, dude, we are well on the way, man. Like when I crafted this over a year ago, I look now, I'm like, okay, like we've done that, or like we're halfway through this next one. And so it's really cool just to kind of paint that picture. But those are the three areas of focus is yeah, supplements, community coaching, and apparel.
What do you find, like, how do you, because being an entrepreneur, being somebody who's on their own, vision boards, all that, sometimes I have days where I'm like, fuck it, this is all failing. This is all just, everything's coming to get down. And then there's days where you're like, okay, it's kind of cool. I should keep going. Or you get a positive message from somebody saying, hey, I love your shit. How do you get that mindset of, of being a dad? You got to be a good present father. You got to be a good present husband. You got to be the entrepreneur. You got all these plates spinning. How's that mind? How do you keep that mindset from just totally crash and burning?
Yeah. Maybe I'm not the best one to ask on that. No, it is, man. It's there's this like visual, it's not a meme, it's just like a funny drawing that I come across occasionally, and it's like the life of the entrepreneur. And it's like, it should be like a line straight up into the right, like towards success. But I mean, it's just like a chaos line. It's like up, down, like circle, like go backwards. And then like, and it really is that, man. It's like some days I'm like, hope, like, fuck yes, man. Like I'm about to be a freaking multimillionaire. This is awesome. And then like, there's some days where I'm like, dude, like I'm about to lose everything, man. So I think, like how you get over that, or at least in my perspective, like what has worked for me, right? This may not work for other people, but what has worked for me is, one, to have that clear picture of where you're going. Because if you're just like living day to day as a business and you don't know like what does the roadmap look like, or like what does success look like, then like those wins and those losses, especially those losses, are going to throw you off, right? Because you're going to have freaking really hard days, and you're going to have days you want to quit, like probably more often than not. I wake up and I'm like, fuck, man, like this sucks, dude. But like, I know where I'm going. I know what the mission is. I know what the vision is. And so like, I'm willing to take those bruises over time, because like, I know where we're heading. So that's number one, is like have a clear vision. And I think this is applicable to life as well. There's a lot of parallels between business and just life. And then 2, I would say, is really just like the daily stuff. And so I like to categorize goals into 3 areas, and hopefully this is relevant and valuable. And they are outcome goals, there's performance goals, and there's process goals. And so like that vision that we have, right? That's our outcome. That's where we want to get to. And that's great to have, right? To have the outcome like clearly defined. But we don't want to focus on that all the time. We want to craft that vision, craft that outcome. And then now we want to think about, okay, how do I operationalize this? And so that goes one layer deeper to performance goals. And so like, let's just say, for example, like this isn't the goal, but let's just say this is a goal just to make it super easy. Like, let's say, hey, the goal of the company in 3 years is to be at $10 million, right? Like that's the outcome goal. It's like, that's great. We can hope and wish all we want that we're going to get there, but like, unless we operationalize that, we're not going to get there. And so the next lever or layer of those goals is our performance goals. And so these are like, what are the, like KPIs? What are like the leading indicators that are going to help me get to that outcome? So this might be like, all right, cool. What does, revenue look like on a monthly basis? Or what does, social media growth look like on a daily basis or a monthly basis? And so that's like clearly like performance goals are driven by KPIs. But then that's great to have as well, right? You want to be like reviewing those like every month or so. But really where your focus should be is on what we call our process goals, which is, okay, I have my outcome, I have my performance goals. Now, what are the inputs that are going to drive both of those? It's going to drive my performance goals, my KPIs, which are in turn going to drive my outcome. And so, like, those might be, every single day I want to send 100 DMs, or, I need to release one podcast a week, or, it's very like results focused, input focused. And so, like, that's where I try to focus most of my time, energy, and effort, because those are things I can control, right? I can control the inputs. And so, like, even if I'm having a shit day and I feel like, God, all this is going to explode in my face and like I'm going to lose everything, it's like, okay, I know if I, hit those process goals, those 5 to 6, like key tasks for the business for the day, like, cool, that's a win right there. Right. And so I count that as a win. And so, then my goal becomes not to build a $10 million business, but my goal becomes to do the daily steps that are required for that business to get to $10 million one day. Right. So I think it's just like, the initial question was like, how do you overcome some of that stuff? Right. I mean, for me, that specifically, like, that helps is just craft that vision, but then make it, very, very actionable, to where you're focusing on the inputs instead of the results.
My last guest was an old ex-Navy SEAL, and I asked him a similar question. He said, "How to eat an elephant? One bite at a time." So it's like
Yeah, exactly.
$10 million, goal, but you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do small little increments to get there.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's what we tell our guys in our community. Like the first pillar of our Epic Dad framework is identity and values. And then the second is vision. And like, a lot of guys take forever on this stuff, which is okay. Like, you want to like be intentional about how you're crafting your identity, your values, and then your vision. And like, we're very prescriptive on like how you can do it. But some of the guys take a very, very long time to do it. And I kind of have to push them along a little bit. It's like, hey, your vision should take you 1 week to complete. And some of the guys are like still working on it after like 2 months. And I'm like, dude, it's like, guess what's going to happen to your vision as soon as we create it? They're like, what? I'm like, you're going to take it and you're going to put it in a drawer and we're going to look at it in 6 months. Right. So like, put it down on paper, like identify the goal and then put it away, because we're not going to focus on it. Like, we're going to focus on what you need to do today to become the type of person that's able to meet that goal. Right. And so it's like, like you said, you got to eat the elephant one bite at a time. And it's great to have that vision, to have that huge goal, but ultimately you need to bring it back in, dial it into like what you can control.
Mhm. Well, you part of Savage Syndicate is being hard to kill. You're coaching people to be epic dads. How important is it to be a protector? I mean, how many girls do you have?
I've got two. Yeah. So 7 and 5. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a dad to a son, right? So we fight, we do jujitsu and all that. How important is it for the dads to be a protector of their not only themselves but their family as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's super important, right? I mean, you want to protect, provide, and preside, are kind of the 3 P's, right? And so protect is a huge one of that. And especially when it comes to girls, like having little girls, right? And it's funny, because I mentioned earlier, right? Like, my goal as a dad is like a girl dad is to be the example of the type of man that I want them to marry one day. But like, in addition to that, it's like, you know what? My daughters, they're going to go out into the world at some point in time. Like, when they turn 18, they're gone, right? And I would love for them to call daddy up, and to help out. And like, I'm happy to do that. But like, I feel like it's my job to make them, to where they don't need to do that. They're self-sustaining, they're disciplined, they can rely on themselves when they go out in the world. And so like, we're about to sign them up for jujitsu, at 7 and 5 as girls, which I'm like super pumped about. But yeah, man, like, if I mean, if something happens, right, like, you're it, right? Like, we can call the police. Like, you think they're going to help? Like, you think they're going to be there on time if there's an intruder? Like, no. So like, it's on you. And it kind of goes back to that first, pillar of like being a man, of like accepting responsibility, right? It's like, it is your job to be the provider, and a protector. So it's yeah, 100% important, man. Something I take seriously. Like, I'm not like a jujitsu expert or anything like that. But I know a little bit enough to kind of get around. I know enough how to throw a punch, and hopefully take a guy down. And I know enough on how to shoot a gun and be fairly accurate with it. and so I feel like I'm good, but there's always more we can do. I think so. I'm looking to get into jujitsu a little bit more. It's funny the jujitsu class for my kids. They run something at the same time, so I can take them and go train. But they don't do BJJ, they do Muay Thai at that time, and I'm like I don't know anything about Muay Thai, but I'm like I know it's striking, and I'm like if I get into a fight, it'd be nice to like be a pretty good striker,
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about signing up.
I would recommend it. That's how what I teach is striking, groundwork, and situational awareness. So yeah, every fight starts standing. 99% of them. Then 99% of them go to the ground. So you need to
To the
have.
ground at some point, yeah, yeah.
Are they excited about it, or did you like, hey, we need to get it into jujitsu, or did
No,
they?
my oldest daughter is very excited about it. So, like I said, I know enough to like probably get my ass kicked. Like with somebody that really knows how to do it right.
Yeah.
But no, we wrestle all the time with the girls. Like for example, I was talking to them about going to jujitsu the other day because once they finish up gymnastics this month, then we're gonna get them signed up. So I was just talking to them about it, and then my oldest daughter, I was laying on the ground, just playing with the kids or whatever, and she was like, "Hey, Daddy, I gotta tell you a secret. I gotta tell you a secret." And I'm like, "All right, whatever." Kind of leave my head in, and she just like gets me in like a rear naked choke. She's like trying to get me, and then my
Yeah.
other daughter just goes like jumps on me, and so yeah, we're wrestling all the time. They're pumped about it. My older one really wants to do it. My younger one's not really sure about it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take them to actually go watch a class and stuff like that. But
They should they should
yeah,
do well though with the gymnastics background. At least they'll know
mhm,
how their body moves and the body
yeah,
position. All that. That's probably a good transition.
yeah. Yeah, and I just like I said, at the end of the day, I want my kids to be self reliant, and that includes protecting themselves
Yeah.
when they're out of the house and dad's not there at all times anymore. And a lot of that is being able to handle yourself, whether that's with weapons, whether that is in a fight, right, a street fight, whether it's standing or goes to the ground. And like you don't need to be an expert, you don't need to be a freaking black belt, right? But like you need to know how to handle yourself in different situations, even though it may never come, right? At least you are prepared to handle yourself and step up and be that protector for them.
Well, that's what I tell people is like you don't need to learn like to be a UFC champion. You just need to know the fundamentals to where you can be proficient. I don't want to say deadly, but most of those people who are attacking people aren't skilled at all, right? They're just
Yeah,
assholes doing bad shit. And if you fight back, know how to throw a punch or know how to break an arm, that's all you need. And these guys are going to run away, right? There's thousands of videos out there where when people fight back, the people usually run. They get so scared they drop all the shit.
yep,
Drop back.
yeah. Or even like more important than that is like how do I stop it from happening in the first place,
Yeah.
right? Which goes back to the very first part of our conversation, right? Of like being physically fit,
Yeah.
like looking like you can handle yourself, right? Like being confident, walking with your shoulders back, and like just being a man, right? Because more often than not, right, the people that are looking to do this are sizing you up, and if you look like you can defend yourself, they're going to look at the next guy, and they're just going to pass you over. So I think a lot of it too is a deterrent strategy of just like, hey, nobody's going to fuck with me because I look like you don't want to,
Yeah. And I think that's great for girls to have that too, because the same thing,
Yeah.
predators looking at the docile little young girls who aren't going to protect themselves. And I love seeing little savage girls who are like, "Fucking try me, try me." And then I roll with women, and there's some there's some badass women out there for sure. And so I think you could see those assholes who are looking to harm people. They want the easy meal ticket. They don't want the
Mhm.
badass women who are walking around like, I know my shit. I also carry a gun. Like, fuck with me. Like, yeah. So I think it's a huge. I mean, obviously hard to kill savage thing. That's what I'm all about. But yeah, good
Yeah.
girls. I like that. They say they start right after gymnastics.
Yeah, we're trying to find the best gym for him right now. So I'm kind of calling around and going visiting a couple. Like I said, there's one that'll work out where I can train at the same time they do, but I have to do Muay Thai, which I've never done before. But I think sounds pretty cool. Like I would love to be able to know how to do, like I said, I'm not to be an expert, right? But just to know how to handle myself in striking. Because like I said, I know enough BJJ to like somebody doesn't know anything, like I'll wrap them up pretty quick. But as far as like being up, like dude, I've taken a punch several times and I've thrown some punches, but like it'd be nice to like be more effective at it.
Well, if your girls are anything like my boy, he's not going to want. They're not going to want you to leave. My boy does
Oh
something.
yeah,
he looks at me for approval. I'm like, good job. We give shakas. I'm like, yeah, good
Yeah.
job. And so much to where the coaches are like, stop looking at your dad. He's not coaching you. There's a big sign in
Yeah.
our jiu-jitsu saying no coaching. So I just sit there and I'm like, pay attention, stop looking at me. But he doesn't want to leave because I've done that before where I've gone at another fight studio and I've sparred. And he's like, Dad, where were you? You didn't see this. You didn't see that. I'm like, all right, I
Yeah.
realize I got to spend an hour watching you train. And then I do 2 hours after he trains. My wife comes, picks him up. So
Yeah.
hopefully your girls let you go train and do your thing because mine will not let me leave the academy.
Yeah,
So
so we'll figure out the best schedule for it, but they're looking forward to it. I think it's super important again, just to obviously make them a little bit harder to kill, right? But then also just instills that confidence in them, which I think is huge, which I want.
yeah. Well, perfect, Drew. I mean, we're up against an hour right now. I really appreciate you coming on. If people want to watch this and want to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, best way is just on Instagram. That's kind of our main platform. We're on all of them, but probably most active on Instagram. So it's just at the Epic Dad Co. And then that's our kind of supplement brand. And then we just started a new page that's all about community. It's all about coaching, programming. So it's got like 20 followers right now because we just started it. So go give us some love there. But if you're interested in the community side, it's just Tedco_life. And then those are the best two places.
Perfect. Well, Drew, I really appreciate it. You know, something you did with me and I totally caught me off guard. You asked me, what do you want my legacy to be? Or what? So I'll ask you the same question. What do you want your legacy to be for your family, for your kids, for everybody out there?
Oh man, it caught me off guard too. I should have known it was coming.
Right back at you.
Yeah, dude. God, such a good question. I at the end of the day, like I want my kids to know that a couple things. Like one, that I'm proud of them, right? So when they put me in the ground, I want them to know that dad is proud of them. Like regardless of if they succeed, if they fail, like whatever they do in life, that I'm proud of them. If they are going out and being their authentic selves, if they're going out and giving the best effort they can be and going after what they want to go after, I'm proud of them. So that's number one. I think number two is knowing that I accept them as well, and knowing that like every choice that they make, there's gonna be some that I'm not thrilled with, right? Especially as they get older, and maybe it's a career choice or maybe it's some other personal choice, right? And it may not be the choice that I would have made, but like I want them to know like I accept them for who they are. So that's two things, and then I would say probably number three is like what I want to like leave them with is like hopefully I have instilled the values in them, and the lessons in them that they can go out there and they can survive and thrive on their own, in the world, with a caveat like knowing that dad will always be there if they need it, right? And so like I want them to know that like my job was to equip them to go out and just do amazing things in life, but knowing that dad like will always be
Yeah. Wow. You did awesome. It was a tough question, but you got it out. There you go.
there. Yeah,
Well,
well,
thank
I've
you.
thought about it a lot. I have a dad brand, so
Well, when you asked me that, I was like, wow, never thought about it. And I'm pretty proud of my answer. I was like, be a stand-up father and a husband and, businesses come and go, whatever, but the family, I
Mhm.
really focus and my family's back there. The three of them, it's just the three of us. So yeah, it's just be a good stand-up dad is all part of that. And I appreciate you coming on, Drew. I will have all the links to everything that they can reach out to you down below when I post this. But yeah, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it.
Yeah, brother Josh, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure, man. And I'll have to shoot you over some videos, which I'm going to do some Muay Thai. You can give me some pointers on it.
There you
What I'm
go.
doing.
Yeah, you'll love it. Muay Thai is tough because in boxing, right, there's a lot of blocking. Muay Thai, if you watch a Muay Thai from Thailand, they just kick the shit out of each other. They don't block a lot. They stand toe to toe. Pop, 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 pop. That's boxing. You like jab, move, and do all this. Muay Thai, you just stand there and take shots, man. But I'm sure you'll do great. I'm sure you'll do great.
That's
Don't
fine. I'll toughen up a little bit.
go. All right, Jewel. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Stay safe, stay savage, and stay hard to kill. What's up, Savages? Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to that podcast. I really appreciate it. If you guys want more information or more content like this, visit me at www.savagesyndicategroup.com. syndicate.com, where you could also join the Savage Syndicate group, where I have over 160 videos in a library of all things teaching you guys how to become hard to kill. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Stay safe, stay savage, stay hard to kill.